There are 4 ways right now that you could be paying off your debts faster. And one of these ways is actually more than just paying more than the minimum monthly payment. One of these ways actually focuses on behavior and the idea that small wins over time leads to larger victories when it comes to paying off your debt. So I'm gonna break this down into 2 debt repayment strategies that are most talked about in the finance space. And then I'm gonna add on 2 other strategies that I've personally used to pay off my debts. And if you haven't watched my other video on how I've paid off $30,000 in less than 3 years, make sure you take a look at that video either now, after this video, just to get an idea of how I applied some of these strategies towards my own personal journey. So why do I feel like I have the authority to speak on this? Well, like I said, I've had my own journey of paying off around $30,000 in debt. And also I'm a wealth coach. So I've been empowered and inspired by my own journey to now help other women. And I have been wealth coaching for about 3 years now. I took a gap year off, but now I'm back at it again, here to help women like you and yourself to build wealth and improve our overall well-being. So the 2 debt repayment strategies that are most talked about is the fast version of paying down debt, which is the Avalanche Method, and then we have the slower version of paying off our debt, which is called the Snowball Method. How the Avalanche Method works is that you are going to make a list of all the debt that you have from highest interest to lowest interest. Once you do that, your aim is to start with knocking out the higher interest debt first and work your way to the smaller interest debts as you go. So we're gonna work top to bottom. Now, an organization called Lending Tree actually found that using the debt avalanche method can save a significant amount on interest payments. In one scenario, they demonstrated a saving of $29 by paying off a $17,068 debt over 57 months using the Avalanche Method compared to the Snowball Method. Now, you might be saying $29 is not that big of a difference and not that big of a deal. So you're right, but I'm gonna show you in a second why some people might rather pay maybe the extra $29 and skip on the saving by going a different route and following the Snowball Method. So the Snowball Method is sort of the slower version of paying off your debts, but it could be the fastest when it comes down to behavior. Why? Well, with the Snowball Method, you are actually paying off the smaller debt first before the larger interest debt. So you would think, well, you would want to pay off the higher interest debt first because you have interest working on it, and the bigger the debt, the more interest working on it versus the smaller debts. And so you want to pay off your debts as fast as possible, and you want to knock off the larger ones first, so you're paying less interest over time as you're paying off your debt. However, when it comes down to psychology, we realize that when it comes to achieving goals, it's better to break down our goals into smaller chunks. And when we break them down into smaller chunks and we make them more easily achievable, we're able to celebrate those small wins. And those small wins actually give us the motivation needed to go further. So when we're looking at the Avalanche Method, logically, it makes more sense. I'm someone that actually does prefer the Avalanche Method because I just like to see the bigger debt go. But I can understand for some people, it might not be as motivating, and it's gonna be harder to stay motivated to pay off a larger debt that might take a longer time to get to. Versus the Snowball Method, if I can knock out a $400 credit card in a month and then start to work towards some of the higher ones, it actually might keep me going and keep me more motivated. Now, everybody is different. Everyone gets some sort of emotional satisfaction from achieving their goals in various ways. And there is no one way to achieve a similar goal. So it is totally up to the individual at the end of the day. Yes, the fastest way to pay off your debt is the Avalanche Method, but the smartest way actually might be the Snowball Method. Now, there are 2 other strategies that I've implemented in my own journey that not much people talk about when it comes to repaying your debt. So My first strategy, on top of the 2 debt repayment methods we just spoke about, is going to be obviously increasing your income. That is one of the biggest ways, in tandem using the first 2 debt repayment strategies, the Avalanche and the Snowball, to pay down your debts faster. The more income you have coming in, the more you can put down towards your debt. Of course, you can put it towards anything. You can put it towards spending extravagantly, or you can be financially responsible and decide to put any extra income that comes in, whether it's through your work, whether it's through gifts, whether it's through a side hustle, towards paying down your debt. And I actually talk about this in my video of how I paid off my $30,000 debt within 3 years, because I was taking on side hustles, and the extra money that I was getting from these side hustles was going into paying off my debt. So instead of just focusing on one income and the money from one income to pay it down within X amount of years, I was able to shorten that time frame by using income from other sources to pay it down within a shorter amount of time. So that is something that you might want to consider. And it could also even just be asking for a raise. It doesn't necessarily mean you have to take on additional work, because I do understand burnout is real and some people just don't have the capacity to take on additional work. And to be honest, we shouldn't have to, right? This capitalist system is not working for us in the way that it should. And I'm very aware of that. As a wealth coach, we need to look at alternative frameworks to be resourceful and to be whole, but it is totally up to you. Some people are willing to make that short-term sacrifice and take on additional work, especially if you know it's just for a short period of time. I'm not necessarily condoning hustle culture and grind culture, but if you have a vision and you know the time frame for it, it might be worth exploring. If not, look at avenues to raise your income with the 1 income or 2 incomes that you already might have. So asking for a raise at work. It could also be getting a new job. I know that does take time, but these are other avenues that we could be exploring to increase our income. Then the last strategy that I recommend is also looking at decreasing our spending. And I know this isn't a tip that most people like to hear, especially when we are living in an economic time where it seems to be really hard. People are having already a hard time making ends meet. And so to be told that you need to be spending less, how? You know, grocery prices are up, rent prices are up. If you feel like you are doing your absolute best to minimize expenses in all the areas of your life, great. But if you are spending your money on things that aren't absolute necessities, that are outside of the realm of things that would go under your fixed expenses. So your food, which I consider a fixed expense, and in other videos I have talked about this when it comes to saving, but rent is probably going to be a big one. Rent or your mortgage, that is definitely going to be a fixed expense that you can't really escape. And the only way to reduce expenses in this area is to downsize. So if you find yourself in a situation where your rent is really holding you back, you might want to explore downsizing homes. When it comes to rent, maybe finding a cheaper area, city to live in. I know, of course, this kind of coincides with maybe having to change jobs, the process of selling a home. It could be a lot. So it's totally up to the individual, but you know your situation. And if you need help figuring out where you can downsize, how you can minimize your expenses while also increasing your income, feel free to book a one-on-one call with me and we can explore this together, because like I said, everyone's situation is different. So the advice that I'm giving you is pretty generic, but based on your situation, I might actually suggest that you take a different approach. So overall, if you can, try to find ways to reduce your expenses on non-necessities. That dinner that you do with your friends every weekend, maybe want to minimize that to once a month. So just looking at the areas in your life where you are spending where it's not really a necessity. You don't have to. And I know that this can be hard, but we need to reprioritize what our goals are. What is more important? Making short-term sacrifices today so that you're balling and you're rich tomorrow, or continuing to enjoy the luxuries of today, but being broke further down the road? So it's totally up to you. To me, I rather make those short-term, I don't even call them sacrifices, I call them breakthroughs, really. I want a breakthrough to happen, and in order for that breakthrough to happen, I need to make slight shifts and changes in how I'm showing up in my everyday life. So to have that breakthrough, you need to do that reflection as to what needs to change financially. So those are the 4 simple ways to pay down your debts faster. I know one of them isn't actually faster in the sense of putting more money down, and it's more from a psychological point of view, staying motivated. But if you're someone that feels like you're on your way towards paying off your debt and then you always kind of give up midway and you never actually end up seeing it come to fruition, then the snowball method actually might be the best for you. And for some of you, it might just, applying the Avalanche method while increasing your income. So you can use all 4 of these in tandem or all 3 of them. That's what I did. I focused on the Avalanche method with increasing my income and decreasing my spending, but it is totally up to you. I think one thing to be mindful of is that everyone's journey is going to look different. Everyone's time frame is going to look different. It's up to you how soon you want to pay off your debt. So if you don't want to skip out on those weekend dinners with your friends, or getting your nails done, or traveling and taking your trips to places, like, you can choose to pay off your debts slower and at a later time. It just depends on how much of this debt is emotionally weighing on you. I know for me, I don't like to owe anybody anything. So the faster I can pay off my debts, the better. That's what feels better to me. I don't have that guilt eating at me later that, oh, this money should have went towards this or that. But if you don't have that guilt, if you are totally fine with taking your time to pay off your debt, then some strategies might work better than others. And I just want to say thank you for watching this video. Go watch the other video on how I paid off around $30,000 in debt within 3 years. I think that story will also be just as inspiring. And I will catch you here again in another video, whether it's talking about wealth strategy, wealth mindset, and wealth building, also that you can create the life that you love. So don't forget to like and subscribe, and feel free to share with me in the comments. What kind of debts are you working towards paying off? And what kind of strategies have you implemented to pay it down faster? Or what strategies have helped you to stay motivated over time? Please let me know in the comments, and I'm rooting for you, cheering for you. I know that you can do it, and I'll see you in another video. Bye.